Hey everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. It's Monday. That means it's Letterman Live, brought to you by our good friends at Roosters for a fun, casual Ohio State conversation. We're going with the originals here that helped us out at Lettermen Row. Beanie Wells back in the building, getting that quarantine beard going like me. Zach Boren, he's still he's taking a break for some work. He's finally in the office there. Appreciate these Ohio State guys, legends, Letterman hanging out with us. And then just Berm over there rocking the backwards hat. Just in case you guys have never seen him even wear a hat for this show, you can tell that we're all in quarantine and getting a little loose. Beanie,
yeah, I don't wear hats.
How's it going in your house, man?
It's going well, man. I can't complain too much outside of eating everything that I'm seeing, man. I put on the quarantine 15, and it's been a struggle.
Zach, you hanging in there?
I'm hanging in there, man. I'm still working out every morning. I bought a bike this weekend, man. Rode like 20 miles Friday night. Rode another 15 to 20 on Saturday. So trying to stay active, man.
Man, Love is Blind. Love is Blind season 2 is going to love you.
Oh, my God. I can't wait, Berm. I cannot wait.
We got to get him all that attention here. Get the face out there, the name recognition, expand it for Zach Boren on our latest Letterman Live. Speaking of guys who have established their brand, the NFL draft is now complete. The free agent deals are also signed for Ohio State. Another huge draft class, 10 Buckeyes selected, including a little bit of history with 1, 2, 3, with Ohio State's claim to Joe Burrow and his degree, Chase Young and Jeff Okudah there. Pretty phenomenal run for Ohio State, continuing to stack up draft success. They've now had more draft picks, the first-round draft picks, than any other school in college football history. One of them is on this show today. So, Beanie, we welcome those guys into that fraternity. What did you think of Ohio State's latest draft class?
No, I loved it. Obviously, there were some surprising things there. KJ Hill being one of them, him going that late in the draft. You don't get a receiver traditionally that productive at Ohio State that go that late in the draft. So that was a little bit shocking there, but overall, I loved it. I love the amount of picks that we were able to get going, and I think some teams got some damn good players from the Ohio State University.
Does it feel like it's been over a decade since your name was called? Do you relive that every Thursday night when the draft starts?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt, man. I was just sitting there talking to my sister watching the draft, on Thursday, and we were just talking about how it seems like it was yesterday that we were just in those kids' shoes, and we were just there when my name was called, just jumping around on TV. So I definitely relive those moments, and it's fun. It's fun to get a chance to see those guys get an opportunity to live out their dreams, and there were some classic moments this year, without a doubt, watching that thing. Man, hilarious.
How about, C.D. Lamb's girlfriend, that poor girl, you get memed when your boyfriend comes off the board snatching that phone. That's –
oh, bro, that was one of the most hilarious things I had seen ever in live draft coverage right there.
She saw an opportunity to finally peek at his phone, and he's like, nope.
Great hands, strong grip strength, quick reactions and instincts. I think that's why CeeDee Lamb got picked there. Zach, what did you think? Who was the biggest snub there for Ohio State over those 3 days?
Obviously, Beanie already talked about KJ Hill, how you are you break all of the receiving records in Ohio State football history and you slip until the 7th round. I think Beanie will agree with me on this. I think it all has to do with his 40-yard dash at Indy, which you're running on grass. Or in that case, turf. That is not game speed. When you watch game speed and you saw him go up against corners and safeties that are running 4.4s, he's getting around them. He's creating separation. So I think that was the only thing that was holding him back. I thought all day he was a 3rd, 4th round guy. And, for him to fall all the way to the 7th round, too bad Phillip Rivers isn't still there, because Phillip Rivers and KJ Hill together would tear up the AFC West. But, he's going to have a young quarterback to do it with and get on the same page. And the other one in my mind, some people may not call it a snub, but J.K. Dobbins, how he dropped to that part in the 2nd round, I thought for sure he was the best back in the draft. A lot of people liked Clyde, the kid from LSU. A lot of people liked DeAndre Swift Georgia and Jonathan Taylor. But in my mind, I did not think there was anyone in the draft that was a more complete back, especially when it goes to the NFL. If you wanted a pure runner, if the Steelers really need a running back, I could see them going Jonathan Taylor. But for a guy like J.K. Dobbins, who pass protection is one of the best I've ever seen in college football, the way he goes out of the backfield as a receiver, the way his vision and his lateral agility, his speed, after he gets the balls in his hands. I mean, everything about J.K. Dobbins that goes on to the NFL is perfect. And for him to drop down there to Baltimore was a complete shock.
I'm right there with you, Zach. That was one of the more glaring ones that I saw. And, knowing that the NFL is a league that goes to wanting all-around running backs, there isn't a better all-around running back in the draft than him that can catch the ball out of the backfield, like you said, block their tail off. But piggybacking again on KJ, the fact that he goes against Damon Arnett, Okuda every day in practice, and you know how it is when you're there at Ohio State. Scouts are there every single day. How are they not evaluating this kid going against those guys in practice and saying, you know what, he's a much more productive guy than going in the 7th round. We got to get this kid in the 3rd or 4th round. Definitely surprising for sure. And we can't forget about the fact that Damon Arnett going in the 1st round and been, in the top 20. I think that surprised a lot of people as well.
Yeah.
What was more surprising, where KJ went or where Damon went?
I think for me, where Damon went. I thought, obviously, we know Damon had some 1st-round talent, but I thought he was like a surefire 2nd-round pick, maybe 3rd. But him going in the top 20, was not expecting that at all.
I think for me it was KJ, right? I mean, this is a guy that dropping all the way to the 7th round. This is, Beanie talked about it. The scouts saw him go up against Damon Arnett and Okuda in practice. They saw him last year, go up against even better DBs, right? He's been there for 5 years. I mean, this is a guy who has went against the Denzel Wards, went against the Malik Hookers, right? He's been there for a long time. For him to drop to the 7th round, yes, I know the draft this year was a deep draft within wide receivers, but how many small – this is the thing that irritates me the most about the NFL draft. How many small-name wide receivers or small school guys get picked, and you were like, how is KJ Hill still on the board? It's these scouts. Once you get past the 3rd round, once you get into Saturday – these scouts and GMs want to find the diamond in the rough. They're going to draft. Saturday is all about drafting small school guys to make themselves look better and say, hey, I found this guy. Even though there was 20 that have busted before him, they want to hang their name on one guy. And by drafting a big school guy, like a guy from Ohio State, they don't get the same recognition. They're like, oh, yeah, he's an Ohio State guy. He should be good, right? They want the diamond in the rough to make themselves look better, and that's what Saturday is about.
I thought – who got penalized the most by that over the weekend was Brandon Bowen. And I had already said on this show every week, really, for the last 6 weeks, that it was criminal that he wasn't invited to the combine as the starting right tackle for the most productive offense in college football. But so I get it that teams might have had injury questions about him, although last year there's plenty of film of him being healthy and making it through the year with that leg. And, if teams had to ask more questions, they could have done that. But like a Division III tackle versus Brandon Bowen, who started at guard and tackle in his career for Big Ten champions, won that position battle, made it through all of last year. There were never any questions about him losing that spot or not performing on the right side. How are you possibly going to get a better value? Now, the Panthers reaped the benefit because they were able to snatch him up as soon as it was over to a free agent deal, but he was hurt, I think, by the shutdown and what Zach is talking about with teams that just, want to get creative and impress somebody that they found a diamond in the rough. When you have a 6'7", 6'8", 330-pounder who can move at times like a tight end in Brandon Bowen, that's a guy.
He played tight end in his career at Ohio State too. So
I think he's a guy that's going to play in the league for a long time. So I know that, Berm, that was a guy who was on your radar for one of these, snubs or had your attention. Yeah. Is there any other draft pick or free agent deal that caught your eye?
No, I mean, there's not any other players I think that that didn't go where I thought they would, but kind of rounding out the KJ talk, I thought that the fact that there was not going to be the traditional draft process would actually help KJ Hill, because people would be forced to rely on the tape and the productivity at a place like Ohio State, because people see the combine time and he ran a 4.6. Like, I don't care about that. Mike Thomas is a 4.58. DeAndre Hopkins is a 4.58. Like, those guys are 6'. When you're talking about a 6-foot receiver running a 4.6, I guess people still are so wrapped up in these numbers, these dumb numbers, but the numbers don't mean crap when you watch the tape. And when KJ Hill's 4.6 is faster than Johnny Dixon's 4.38 that he ran a year ago, if you watch the tape. And it's just weird. And that's not a knock on Johnny. Johnny's a good receiver, and Johnny, is still with the Cardinals. But the fact that they're the same size, if you watch them, one of them looks considerably faster in the game. And you see all these Michigan defensive backs and linebackers who KJ Hill made a career out of roasting, being drafted in the 4th and 5th round. You're like, how's this happening? But people are still so caught up on those numbers.
Well, I think that there's been a lot of, and these two guys down here can speak about it, Zach and Beanie, that there's a difference maybe between, the game speed and what you can run on a track. But even if that's the case, and teams are concerned about the 40 time, well, KJ didn't get to run one at a pro day because it was canceled. And number two, that was never the hallmark of his career at Ohio State. It wasn't like you went into every week and we said, look out, Michigan secondary, you're going to get burned deep by KJ Hill. Like, that's not his game. He is a skilled route runner with reliable hands who seems to have a great understanding of how to get open and create space for himself that counteracts defensive backs that might be faster than him. I mean, it seems pretty simple to me. I don't mean to belabor the point, but it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around all that, Beanie.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, when you look at guys of his stature and his productivity in the college level, the first guy I think of is Anquan Bowen, kind of stop-your receiver, not the fastest guy. I think Anquan was maybe a 4.7, but when it came time to play in the game, you create separation not by being the fastest guy, by being precise on your routes. How do you run routes? What do you break at? And those things that I believe KJ has a very tremendous strength. That's his strength, is his route running ability and creating separation that way and being able to catch the ball, being able to go across the middle and be that physical receiver. So it sucks to obviously see him go that low, but I certainly think he's going to go in with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to go on wanting to prove that he belonged to be drafted, higher. And I think he'll be a productive pro. I really do.
My player comparison for KJ is Keenan Allen. So I guess that's probably why I think the Chargers were the right fit, because they already know what that guy can do. And Keenan Allen's turned himself into one of the best receivers in the NFL. And he's not 6'4". He's not a 4.4 guy. But, I mean, if you look back, and I've seen this anecdotally posted around before, but there's not a single NFL Hall of Fame receiver who ran a 4.4 or less than 4.4 or something. So, like, at some point we're going to get to a realization that 40 time does not equate to being a good NFL receiver. John Ross would be the best receiver in the NFL.
Which he is not, by the way.
He is definitely not.
No, he is not.
Zach, you touched on this earlier with KJ Hill going head-to-head against Okudah, Arnett, Sean Wade over the years. And there's this idea now that Ohio State practices and, the scouts being there to see that the iron sharpens iron, and these reps that, Brandon Bowen is getting against Chase Young, or, Justin Fields is getting against those defensive backs, that's maybe what is developing these guys to the next level, but also maybe why you should give them the benefit of the doubt, because they're proving it day after day through practice. You were at the start of this where Urban Meyer really elevated the recruiting to create this pipeline. What is it like to go through a practice where that there's NFL guys on both sides of the ball, and that just getting through a Tuesday is going to be a challenge?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, Urban Meyer's famous words when he was coach at Ohio State is, I'm going to make practice so hard on Tuesday that games on Saturdays are easy, right? And so scouts are there on Tuesday. Scouts are seeing the ones versus the ones going head-to-head the entire practice. It's it's why Ohio State has become elite, right? If you look around the country, there's maybe 3 or 4 programs that have become elite, and Ohio State is one of them. Is because iron does sharpen iron. These guys are going toe-to-toe with the best of the best each and every day and competing against the best, right? And so that's why you see some of these guys like an Andrew Norwell, like maybe even a Nate Ebner, right? Like you see some of these guys that go off to the NFL and have great careers not being either highly drafted or being undrafted and surviving and actually thriving because they're used to that competition. They're used to going up against the best. So when you go to the NFL, it's a smooth transition.
When you look at this class for Ohio State and another one with double-digit draft picks, you immediately, like we all start looking for the next mock draft, 2021, and spinning it ahead. I think next year's draft class for Ohio State can be even better than this one, and with maybe even more first-round picks. Justin Fields is going to be a given. Like, he's going to be at the top. He's either going to be number 1 or number 2 with that Trevor Lawrence. So once we take that out of the equation, Beanie, who is the most intriguing Ohio State draft prospect for next year?
Oh man, that's so interesting. Because I don't know where we are. Where were we with Olave? Olave was
he can come out next year.
So if he has a big year, I could see him being one of those, top wide receivers taken. We know his ability to stretch the field. He's a big play waiting to happen. He's been one of the constants that we've had this season, in the receiving core. So that could be a very, very intriguing position right there and pick with him being one of the top picks in next year's draft.
Yeah. Zach, where are you looking?
Yeah, it's funny Beanie brought up Chris Olave because Chris Olave in my mind is so similar to Jerry Jeudy, right? He's quick, but he's not going to blow your socks off with speed. His route running, though, is going to set him aside. If the Raiders weren't the first team to draft or wide receiver, it would have been Jerry Jeudy. Just the Raiders are obsessed with speed, right? But the way that Chris Olave is able to run his routes, he will for sure be up there. There's 2 guys, though, in my mind that should be licking their chops after Thursday night. After seeing the Ruiz kid from Michigan get drafted in the first round, and this is nothing just because he's from, Michigan. In my mind, he was a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick. For the Saints to take him with, I think, pick 24 or whatever it may be in the first round, if I'm Wyatt Davis and Myers – and I'm sitting there and seeing that kid get drafted 24, I'm licking my chops knowing, hey, next year I'm going to be a first-round draft pick because Davis and Myers are so much better than the Ruiz kid.
And that's coming from you, a Michigan man.
It is coming from me, right? Hey, listen, on draft day, I will give respect. Just like I think one of the biggest snubs I honestly do is Donovan Peoples-Jones. Going to the Browns in the 6th round, I think he's a – 3rd round pick, right? I think him and KJ Hill are very similar. I think, obviously completely different. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a athletic freak, tall. You put him on the outside. But I think in the system, he's pretty great. He wasn't as productive because he's in Jim Harbaugh's offense, but he's a kid who I believe got snubbed. And you look at his physical tools, you look at what he does on film with the limited opportunities that he's had. I mean, that's a kid that I'm shocked that he went in the 6th round.
Let me ask you guys something. Jordan Lewis, the cornerback for the Cowboys and former Michigan defensive back, in the middle of the day on Saturday was talking about Delano Hill and Donovan Peoples-Jones and said, I can't believe these guys aren't drafted, but I know why. And it got me thinking, what impact do you think a negative review from a coach or from the head coach at the school that you're coming from, could it really send you that far down? I'm not saying that's what it was, but to me, that's kind of what it feels like, is that maybe there was not a ringing endorsement coming from Ann Arbor about those kids.
Simple answer, yes.
How far does that? How much is that worth to the NFL?
Go ahead, Beanie.
I think it's gold. I mean, these are the individuals in which these guys are with every single day. So they know how he is in the classroom, how he is off the football field, how he is on the football field, how he is in the meeting room. So when they give a ringing endorsement, you better believe it's going to be worth its weight in gold when the NFL team and the GM and the coaches is evaluating you, because we all know how it is. In the coaching system, it's nothing but a buddy system. In that coaching world, everybody knows everybody. So it's almost like Boren telling me something. I trust Boren. So I'm going to trust his opinion when he's talking about a guy. So these coaches, it's the same exact way. So if he gives a negative review of a player, you better believe they're going to take that into consideration when they're evaluating him.
But let's be honest, right? In football, coaches play favorites, right? We know that. We know they play favorites, and Beanie knows that. So in the realm of college football in general, when a player isn't a coach's favorite and that coach has kind of got more say than everyone else, if a GM or scout can – see a little hesitancy in that coach and kind of him not give a ringing endorsement, it's going to go a long way, because let's look at it the flip side. Every single coach will go out of their way to say, my guy's the best. You should draft him in the first round. He is unbelievable, right? Some of these coaches are blowing guys up. A guy should really probably be a 6th or 7th round pick, and a coach is saying he should be a 2nd or 3rd, right? They're going to blow their guys up. So because of that, and the non-realistic nature that a coach is going to have a player's back, as soon as a coach may give a, let's call, honest assessment, as in he does this really well, but, he's got some problems with this, and this, and it's not a ringing endorsement like all these other coaches get, it's going to send off alarms, even though it may not be a big deal, right? It could have been something with Donovan Peoples-Jones, just got frustrated because he wasn't getting used the right way, and Jim Harbaugh told scouts and GMs, hey, he gets frustrated at times when he's not getting the ball. That could that could throw out a huge red flag.
There were a lot of rumors last season that Donovan Peoples-Jones and a few other players on the Michigan roster were thinking about basically quitting midway through the year. And again, I'm just totally conjecturing. Like, I don't have any evidence or knowledge of what was actually being said by Jordan Lewis, but it just feels to me like if you look at a guy like Damon Arnett, for example, compared to Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I had Urban Meyer on Bermanology last week, and Donovan Peoples-Jones got brought up, and Urban and I have both been very, very high on Peoples-Jones as just a potential prospect. And Urban was like, yeah, that kid should have been a first-round pick. And then you see a guy like that who's 6'2", 210 pounds, 45.5-inch vertical, 4'4". I mean, you're talking about the elite of the elite when it comes to his athletic ability. And I get productivity at Michigan is down because of the offense they run, but Mike Thomas was a 2nd-round pick, and his productivity was terrible at Ohio State. Not terrible, but not like huge NFL numbers. Mike Thomas needed to redshirt his sophomore year because of maturity issues. Clearly, Ohio State still went out and stumped for him to get him drafted where he got drafted in the 2nd round, right? Like, how does a guy of that physical – because the NFL, as we know, that's all about – as we're talking, like, this is a league that's about upside and potential. And how Donovan Peoples-Jones is a kid who wants to be a doctor, okay? I mean, he's not like some idiot who doesn't know how to read. He's a guy who wanted to be a doctor out of college. It just seems like there's a piece missing here, and I would love to know what it actually is, because the upside there is off the charts. And the fact that he fell to the 6th round with his physical ability and knowing what I know of him as a player from when I covered him as a recruit, like, he's not a red flag kid. So it's just interesting to me what actually could have pushed him into that spot.
Well, Berm, I think, and Beanie might have my back on this. I don't know his take, but I think that's what frustrates me most about the NFL, and especially the draft. As you saw, I think it was day 2. It was, round 2 or 3. There was a linebacker from Mississippi State who has played 6 games his entire career at Mississippi State because of academic issues, because of a physical altercation, right? Because of domestic issues. This is a kid who played 6 games his entire career at Mississippi State as a linebacker and is getting drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round. Like, to me, how is a guy like that who's played 6 games in his college career, how is he better than Donovan Peoples-Jones or KJ Hill? Granted, it's a completely different player, but at the same time, how? It's the same kid. The second one is a wide receiver, the kid from Tennessee. I know he got drafted on Saturday, but he may have been before Peoples-Jones and KJ Hill. But the kid from Tennessee went through 2 coaching staffs, and when he got drafted, I was watching it, they said he almost got kicked off by a coaching staff twice, by 2 different coaching staffs, right? I understand you might have a difference of opinion with one and you may have some issues, but when a whole brand new staff comes in and you still continue to have issues with them and almost get kicked off team twice by 2 different coaching staffs, how are you drafting that guy ahead of Donovan Peoples-Jones or KJ Hill? It blows my mind.
Yeah, I got no clue, man. It's a wild situation and way in which they evaluate. You know, you always hear people say it's no exact science to picking a guy in a draft and evaluating the recruit and so on and so forth. But, I mean, like you just said, when you give great examples on why you should draft a guy and then great examples on why you shouldn't draft a guy, it should be cut and dry. And you just gave those examples. So I really can't fathom or understand why they wouldn't go and get a Donovan Peoples-Jones or a KJ Hill when these guys have people behind them, coaching staffs behind them that are with them every single day, giving them the backstory on why they will be productive pros or why they are great citizens. And then you got guys that are just assholes essentially and not doing things the right way. And they go out and they get the not ringing endorsements, but they get the ability to be drafted so high. I got no clue. I think the league, like you talked about a little bit earlier, with them looking for diamonds in the rough, I think they look for those situations to where they can turn the troubled guy into an all-pro and have that comeback story as well.
Yep.
I think that Donovan
before we let you guys
Peoples-Jones
go here on Letterman Live, brought to you by Roosters, it was another Michigan man weighing in that said, oh, the talent gap doesn't exist because both Michigan and Ohio State had 10 players drafted. I'm not sure that Charles Woodson is looking at the same, round equally. Ohio State's guys are drafted here, and Michigan was filling up Saturday. I just thought that Beanie and Zach might want to be able to respond directly to that assertion that there is no talent gap between Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah,
well, actually,
that's it.
Yeah, actually, I took it another way. Yes, I mean, I saw what he was saying, but I took it as Charles Woodson was almost calling out Jim Harbaugh and the staff. I think Charles Woodson, I viewed it as Charles Woodson says, okay, the most was LSU. The next most schools with draftees was Ohio State and Michigan tied at 10. So tell me why we are getting our ass kicked each year by Ohio State. And I think that was his way of saying, hey, the talent gap isn't that far off, right? We're close in the talent gap. So tell me where we're missing something. I think he's trying to point the finger and have the entire Michigan fan base say, hey, Jim Harbaugh and that coaching staff, you better wake up because you don't have an excuse anymore of the talent gap being way off.
That's a great outlook right there.
Yeah.
All right, no need to argue with that one from Beanie. That the point is made. Appreciate you guys jumping in and hanging with us on this virtual version of Letterman Live, brought to you by Roosters, as we all try and stay safe and at home throughout the quarantine. You got something to say over there, Berm?
I have one more question for the guys, and I don't mind. I don't mean to stretch the show that long, but again, going back to the interview I had with Urban last week, he said, and you guys are both Ohio kids, so I want just your opinion on this. He said that the only thing worse for an Ohio high school football player than not getting offered by Ohio State would be getting into Ohio State and then being there and realizing you're not good enough. What do you guys agree with that? Or would you have preferred it if go back in time to not end up at Ohio State or to have gone there and realized you couldn't play there?
I went there and realized I couldn't play. Let me find that out.
Yeah, Berm, to answer your question, I think it's anywhere, right? No matter where I would have went, I'm a competitor. I'm going to compete my ass off each and every day. Trust me. Listen, I look nothing like Beanie, have none of the physical tools that Beanie has, right? But guess what? I'm going to get there, and if I played with Beanie, we're going to rough it up in running back drills, right? It's just the way it was. And so I think my standpoint was I just loved competing and loved the game of football so much that I would have been miserable if I would have went to Miami of Ohio and couldn't play. It was not being able to get out on the field in a game atmosphere and having my peers out on the field. That's where I would have lost it. So, it's not an Ohio State, Ohio kid thing. If I would have went to USC, right, from Columbus, Ohio, and I couldn't see the field at USC, it'd be the same. That would be the lowest point of being able to look at your peers and knowing, hey, I'm not good enough to be able to go out there and compete on the field.
You're 100%.
Nobody likes to fail anywhere they go. But both of these guys got a bunch of gold pants and won a bunch of games at Ohio State, so they don't have to worry about it. That's why we're still talking to them here on Letterman Live, brought to you by Roosters. Great stuff from these guys as always, and they're staying safe and hanging out with us. Beanie, Zach, Jeremy Birmingham, it's been a pleasure talking with you guys again. We'll see you next week on Letterman Live, brought to you by Roosters. I'm Austin Ward. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe below to get the latest videos from Lettermen Row.
We got Letterman Live, we've got the practice report, we got rapid reaction. Hey, and you know we got Buckeye IQ with Zach Boren.
For sure. We got recruiting breakdowns with Berm. We got whatever you need. Ohio State football and Ohio State athletics, we've got you covered here at Lettermen Row.